Check, check, 1, 2.
Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck. Some nights I call it a draw. Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they just fall off. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still
We'll get started in just a few minutes.
What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore. This is it, boys. This is war. What are we waiting for? Why don't we break the rules already? I was never one to believe the hype. See that for the black and white. Try twice as hard and a map is like good. Here they come again to jack my style. That's alright. I found a martyr in my bed tonight. Stops my bones from wandering. Just who I am, who I am, who I am. Oh, who am I? Well, some nights I wish that this all would end, 'cause I could use some friends for a change. And some nights I'm scared you'll forget me again. But some nights I always win. I always win. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know.
So this is it. I sold my soul for this. Wash my hands of that for this. I miss my mom and dad for this. No. When I see stars, when I see stars, that's all they are. When I hear songs,
They sound like a swan, so come on. Well, Jesse got his daddy's on. 5 minutes in and I'm bored again. 10 years of this, I'm not sure if anybody understands. This one is not for the folks at home. Sorry to leave, mama had to go. Who the wants to die alone? All dried up in the desert sun. My heart is breaking for my sister and the comments she call off. And then I look into my nephew's eyes. Man, you wouldn't believe the most amazing things that can come from some terrible lie. The other night, you wouldn't believe a dream I just had about you and me. I called you up and we both was agreed. It's for the best you didn't listen. It's for the best we get all this feeling. So, for the best you didn't listen. It's for the best we get all this feeling. So.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hope y'all are having a great week so far. One thing I want you to reflect on as we start class is the culture of your company does, in fact, affect the way that you design things. For instance, how do you think the culture, at least back in the day, of Microsoft affected their designs, and how do you think the culture of Mac through the present day a little bit affects their designs? Give me a little insight into that in the chat. How did the culture of Microsoft affect their design, and how did the culture of Apple affect their design? Let me know what you think about all that in the chat. Just a little warm up. How does culture affect how things are designed at a specific company? Specifically around the Microsoft and Apple examples. In the chat, let me know what you're thinking. Are you out there? Anybody alive? Let me know in the chat. What do you think? How did the culture of Apple affect their products, or how did the culture of Microsoft affect their products? You're getting in some good thoughts here. Good thoughts here. All right, and one thread that I'm picking up on from a couple of y'all now, which I think is really accurate, is um, Apple definitely tends to focus on minimalism. Okay. Yeah, exactly along these lines. So I would say Apple in general has embraced the idea, especially when Steve Jobs was at the helm and Joe and Ivy, the idea of minimalism, right? So everything has a purpose, but we don't want to add anything that isn't necessary. It kind of started with the whole circle selector. If y'all are old enough to have ever had an iPod that had the circle selector, it was really just a wheel and a button, right? And they used that for one of the first iPods. It's really just this idea of minimalism and using only what you have to make something come to life. Whereas Microsoft, as some of you also pointed out, Microsoft is more concerned about compatibility and working with everything and making sure that everything's compatible with them. And so you can see that concern has made its way into their products, especially back in the day when they were, let's say, I don't know, let's say late like 2000s ish, 2000 to 2010, they were definitely concerned with being compatible with everything, and that affected their aesthetics. Here you can see their aesthetics kind of represented by their presentation styles, right? Like Microsoft's compatible with everything, works with everything. Apple, very minimal, works only with itself. And what I want you to realize here is kind of the culture or the philosophy or whatever of your group will affect the product that you make. Just like a company, the culture of the company affects the products they make. So this is something important just to consider as you go about making your app. The kind of culture that you build, even though it's just a small group that's together for a short time, you do have some implicit culture. Think about whether you want to go for minimalism or style or color, or how do you want to present yourselves. That will affect the product you make. All right. Now, just a few announcements before we get fully started. The project feedback is out. I've seen a couple questions on Slack, which I will get to today for sure. Hopefully, the project feedback made sense to you. If not, again, feel free to ask me in Slack. The project feedback is meant to help you do better on your future deliverables. As I mentioned before, I was pretty happy overall with the deliverables I saw, and I don't want to say hypercritical, but I was trying to give you feedback that will help you do better next time. Um, so I gave a lot of feedback, tried to give you feedback on the things that I thought were the highest priority to fix for next time. Please take that feedback in, please pay attention to that feedback as you develop your MVP, as I said. Now, there are actually two things due this week. As I mentioned, the MVP is due this week. That is due on Friday. And the MVP, again, is the minimum viable product, just something that does the basics of your app. However, there is one other thing due this week, and that is to prove your commits. Okay. So there is a group deliverable, and that is to show a short video of your app. You want to show a short demo video of your app, you using your app, walking me through the basic functionality, pretend like you play a hole or two. The longest it can be is 90 seconds, 1.5 minutes. That's the longest it can be. Shorter is better. And I want you to walk me through the basics of your app and do a basic voiceover, which, just means you talking through what's going on and why you made certain choices or things like that. So that's deliverable one. That's a group deliverable, a short video of your app as it works right now, or by Friday. The other thing is proof that you individually are working on the project, and that is only in the form of commits. Meaning, I want you to turn in the URL that points to your commits for your project. And I've given you the format to do that in Gradescope. And I want you to give me a screenshot of your commits on the project. So that is an individual deliverable, and that is just to show that you have been working on your project. So two things due this week: the MVP, which is going to be delivered via a short demo video, and that's a group deliverable. Then the second thing, just proof of your commits, and that is done as a URL and a screenshot, and that is an individual deliverable. So one group deliverable, one individual deliverable this week. The other thing is that the exam will be coming soon, probably in the next 2 weeks. The midterm exam. I feel like we're gotten to a point where y'all have learned enough that I would like to do that exam. That exam will come on a Friday, either not this Friday, either next Friday or the one after. It will be just during class time. It will be on your computer, and it will be like a limited amount of time kind of exam. So that's how we're going to do it. It'll be through Gradescope, just so you know kind of the format for that. If you want to kind of get ahead of the game studying it, you can, of course, review the heuristics, review how to apply heuristics. That's going to be some of the main things, is what are the heuristics, and then applying the heuristics. That is, as you've gotten the idea, that's one of the most important parts of the class for this first part. So that's definitely something I'll test. But really, if you've been coming to class and doing especially the studio things, I think you're going to be fine on that exam. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just if you're going to study anything, just study the heuristics, and there are only 10 of them, so not that bad. All right. Today we're going to go over user studies at a little more depth, and it's going to be kind of an interactive day. So hope y'all are awake. One thing I wanted to review with y'all is we talked about user studies, and we talked about qualitative versus quantitative user studies. And so we talked about qualitative versus quantitative user studies. I'll answer questions. I see there's questions on the project. I'll answer questions about that at the end. What I want y'all to do is think back to qualitative versus quantitative user studies, and just to warm up, what are some words or some types of qualitative user studies? What do you think are qualitative user studies? Some words that describe them, some types of qualitative user studies. Think back, qualitative versus quantitative. What characteristics are qualitative user studies? What are some names of qualitative user studies? What are some tools even that are used to do qualitative user studies? Get there in Menti. The code is 464760, and let me know. There's 44 of y'all on the stream right now, so I'm hoping for more than 0 answers here. Get out there. I'll give y'all just a minute to do this. All right, good. And some of the answers I'm seeing here, like surveys or written user reviews or interviews or observations. The point is with qualitative, it's often data that can't, you can't just count the data, right? You have to watch people and figure out kind of what they're thinking and do, a little bit more messy analysis. Surveys actually can be qualitative or quantitative depending on how you do them, but certainly interviews and observations and subjective kinds of things, that's what I mean when I'm talking about qualitative user studies. Now, quantitative user studies, what are some words or types of studies or characteristics that remind you of quantitative user studies? Again, there's 45 people here on the stream, 46. So let's get a few more answers in there. All you slackers out there, stop lifting weights or whatever you do during this class and get involved. Doing your dishes, whatever kids do during classes, sleeping. Let's go for 15 answers. Let's see if y'all can come in with 15 answers. I can sit here all day, but I need y'all to wake up. I feel like 1/3 isn't too much to ask. We got 45 people here. I'm just asking 1/3 of you to get in some answers. Poke your friend, text your friend if they haven't answered. Tell them to get some answers in. I'd like all of y'all to learn something, not just the part of the group that is going to get A's. I want everybody to learn something. Oh, you are so close. 13 people are non-slackers. Let's see if we can make that 15 people. Text your friends. Text your group mates. Tell them to wake up. All right, there you go. So, when we think of quantitative user studies, y'all are in the right ballpark for sure. Metrics are very important. Ratings are a type of metric. Surveys can be used for quantitative. Analytics are a very clear example of quantitative. You're usually going to do things like statistical analysis. You can do things like out of X scores, A/B testing. Um, Number of downloads can be a type of metric. The point is, we're reducing information to a number, and that is the main characteristic of quantitative. And uh, so the thing that we can do with quantitative is we can have a lot more users, right? Like we can, with analytics, you can have thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of users that you can get information from. So that's one of the key differences. So qualitative, you could probably only have fewer users because you have to really get in there and understand the data, maybe even tag the data. Quantitative, you can have a ton of people because you can just reduce it to a metric and then get a number. Great. I think you all have understanding of that. Now, I'm going to put this link in the chat real quick. Everybody open up this, which is the complete guide to user studies. Everybody's going to open up this, and I'll just show it to you briefly. This is one of my favorite guides to user research, user studies. Of course, it has a discussion of quantitative versus qualitative and, the benefits. Seems like good info to know for test. And it even has, other distinctions which I haven't gone over, such as unmoderated versus moderated. Just the idea that you have somebody proctoring the user study or not. But it has a lot of detailed information on different types of user studies, A/B testing, card sorting. And there's a whole bunch more. Clickstream analysis, which is basically paths of URLs, looks something like this. Concept testing or prototype testing, customer feedback, desirability study, camera studies, ethnographic field studies, eye tracking studies, where you see where people look on your page, which is very quantitative kind of thing. Focus groups, information architecture testing, interviews, lab studies, participatory design, remote moderated usability testing, and the list goes on. It's not that long, but it does go on a little bit longer. So what I want y'all to do is I want y'all to take about 5 minutes to peruse these things right here. I put the link in the chat, and then we're going to have a little in-class quiz just to see how well y'all understand it. I'm going to give you just a few minutes to do that. I'm going to actually make sure I put some music there on that quiz. So I'm going to give you just about one or at most two songs to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and get our quiz on. So go ahead and do that so we can have our quiz. All right, so take just a minute. I will give you all a song in just a sec, and we will start our quiz within just a few minutes. Get out there and review those different types of user studies.
Give me a second, I need to get my story straight. My friends are in the bathroom getting higher than the Empire State. My lover, she's waiting for me just across the bar. My seat's been taken by some sunglasses, asking about a scar. And I know I gave it to you months ago. I know you're trying to forget, but between the drinks and subtle things, the holes in my apologies, I'm trying hard to take it back. So if by the time the bar closes and you feel like falling down, I'll carry you home tonight. We are young, so let's No, I know that I'm not all that you got. I guess that I just thought maybe we could find new ways to fall apart. But our friends are back, so let's raise a toast. 'Cause I found someone to carry me home tonight. We are young, so let's set the world on fire. We can burn brighter than the sun tonight. We are young, so let's set the world on fire. We can burn brighter than the sun. Counting home tonight, just counting home tonight. Counting home tonight, just counting home tonight. The moon is on my side, I have no reason to run. So will someone come and carry me home tonight? The angels never arrive, but I can hear the choir. So will someone come and carry me home tonight? We are young, so let's set the world on fire. We can burn brighter than the sun tonight. We are young, so let's set the world on fire. We can burn brighter than the sun. So if by the time the bar closes and you feel like falling down, I'll carry you home tonight.
All right. Do y'all feel like you've had enough time to study that? Let me know in the chat. Have you had enough time, or you need another minute? Or are you ready? Let me know in the chat. You think you've had enough time to study that? Or are you ready? Hello, hello. Okay, I'm seeing at least one person ready, so we are gonna go ahead. Everybody who wants to get logged in for the quiz, and we're gonna get started right about. Let me turn it down just a little. All right, here we go. Remember, answer faster to get more points. For your app in its current state, at the MVP state, what type of user study would be most appropriate? When you have an app at the MVP state, what type of user study would be most appropriate? Should you do eye tracking? Should you do clickstream? Should you do focus group? Or do you think usability testing would be better? Which type of user study for your app in the current state would be most appropriate? And usability study is the correct answer here. For those of you that said focus group, I can almost believe you there. The reason that usability study is more appropriate than like clickstream analysis is we're really early on in the process. Your app may not even be fully mature, so doing a clickstream analysis is like an optimization kind of thing that you want to do when you have like a mature website or a mature product. Same thing with eye tracking. Those are quantitative very concrete things that you want to do when you have a more mature project. Usability study is something you want to do kind of towards the beginning. Question 2 of 5. Answer fast to get more points. If you were Google, how would you be testing the main Google page for usability? If you were Google, how would you be testing the main Google page for usability? Would you use clickstream analysis, click testing, diary study, or focus groups? And for this one, I recommend clickstream analysis. Click testing is reasonable. I can see why you would have chose that. But clickstream analysis, again, is like for very robust, very well-developed apps. So that's a quantitative way that you would do it. Click testing is more like just basic testing with early prototypes. So clickstream analysis is probably the best answer here. The reason I chose it is because Google is a mature product, obviously, and you can do it quantitatively. All right, next up, question 3 of 5. Answer fast to get more points. What technique violates existing UX principles? What technique violates existing UX principles? Usability studies, moderated remote testing, intercept surveys, interviews, or clickstream analysis? What technique actually kind of violates existing UX principles? And that's right, intercept surveys violate existing UX principles. They violate user control and freedom because you're trying to do something and they intercept what you're doing. So that's what I was looking for there. They're really annoying kind of surveys that show up when you're trying to do something. Things like, will you review my app? Or other things like that interrupt you randomly when you're trying to do something. Not a big fan of those, by the way. All right, this is one question, is not part of the actual quiz, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. Have you ever been part of a usability study? And if so, when? Let me know what you think. Have you ever been part of a usability study? And if so, when? Some very specific answers, such as yes, 3 years ago. Not sure what happened then, but probably so. This is a very insightful answer. Every time an app asks me to review it, you're part of a usability study. Absolutely correct. Some people have done beta testing, game beta testing. However, I would say that this answer is incorrect. If you've ever used Google's front page or Facebook, you have likely, especially the Facebook app, you have likely been part of a usability study without even knowing it. Yes, they're doing quantitative user studies at scale on you without you even knowing it. They see how successful or unsuccessful you are at searching. For instance, they can tell if your search was successful or unsuccessful by whether you click on the links in the search or not. And so they are doing usability studies on you all the time, often doing A/B testing, comparing which way of searching is better than the other, and you don't even know it. So if you think you haven't, you're wrong. Companies are doing this kind of stuff to you all the time. Back to our quiz. Question 4 of 5. Answer fast to get more points. Oh, actually, for this one, all correct answers give max points. If you compared your app to 2 other groups' apps for common task, what kind of study is that called? When you compare your app to 2 other groups' apps for common tasks, what type of study is that? There's a specific type of study when you're comparing your apps against similar apps in the marketplace. What is it? It is a UX benchmarking study. A UX benchmarking study is when you compare your app against other apps in the marketplace. UX benchmarking study. All right. I don't think anybody got that. Next up, our final question, 5 of 5. What technique would help you see if users want your current product? What technique would help you see if users want your current product? There's a big hint in the name of this technique. What technique would help you see if users want your current product? Check it out under user testing. The correct answer is desirability study. Desirability study. Not sure if anybody got that either. These were tough. Tough. Let's see who our winner is. And it looks like Trump is the winner today. Trump followed by Venture, Heartstorm, Wormy, Fun, UD, Paul, Sure, Sir Party Pants, maybe, Cole, and Gerpa Lerp. Excellent work, y'all. Those were tough. Now, we talked a lot about many different types of user studies, and that's an important thing for y'all to know. Not that I'm going to have quizzes on or real test questions on all the different types, but I want you to be exposed to the different types of user studies that exist. So when you get out there, you know what's available to you. Similar to that is knowing what kind of software is out there to support you. And I want to ask a question. What do you think you could learn from Google Analytics about a website? What do you think, if you had Google Analytics as your tool, what do you think you could learn about your website or your web app? What do you think, what kinds of things do you think are possible to learn from Google Analytics? Let me know right here in Minty. What do you think is possible to learn when you're using Google Analytics to analyze your website or web app? Okay, you could learn what areas you should focus on by when analyzing an app. Maybe I think you could do this, and you could probably do this by figuring out where people are clicking the most, like what pages people are visiting the most. You can definitely figure out what pages are most visited. Good answer. You can figure out how users are clicking through your site or app. Yes, you could probably figure out clickstream from Google Analytics. I'm not positive about that, but I think you could. You could figure out possibly when people's apps pages crash. I'm not sure about that, but maybe. You could figure out the number of clicks per buttons. Absolutely. Where your users live. Absolutely. Google Analytics does a good job of reporting that kind of stuff. If you have an appealing UI, maybe. I don't know how you would do this. Yeah, I don't know. You might be able to figure out whether they stay on your site a long time, but I don't know if you could figure out directly whether you have an appealing UI. You can definitely learn about users, quantitative information about users, and you can figure out how they get to your site. Excellent. So y'all are giving me a lot of quantitative things that I can get from Google Analytics. Great answers. Thank you very much. Now, besides Google Analytics, I want you to name one software library or software product that can help you perform a usability study. And this might become important for actually your class projects. One software library or product that could help you perform usability studies. There's lots of software out there to help you do usability studies. Name one that you think could help. All right, it appears like y'all do not know many software products that can help you perform usability studies. Facebook is actually a good answer because that's something that you could use to find people to do user studies. And we're not talking about just things that, and Twitter is similar. You could put questions out there like a quiz, not a quiz, a survey on Twitter. You could put a one question survey on Twitter. Espresso, you could use to, you can use testing frameworks to help with user studies, absolutely. Google surveys, probably Qualaroo. I'm not as familiar with that one. Google surveys, absolutely. Okay, so y'all know some software. That's good. But there is lots of software out there to help you. For instance, there is, I believe I have this link up already. There is, let me make sure this is the right link. Yeah, here's what I want you to look at. A couple different links here. Let's just look at this one. There is this link right here, which is a huge list of software tools, specifically this, which we're going to look at in details in a minute. This is a great way of looking for different types of tools. Now, some things that you may not think are user testing tools are actually used in the user testing process. For instance, these are ones you're probably familiar with, scheduling tools, which are going to be important when you're working with users. You have to schedule some time with them. If you're scheduling time with many users, you're going to want to automate that somehow using Doodle or Calendly, or you can book me, these kinds of things if you're booking a lot of time on your calendar. It sounds silly, but it's something, if you've ever had to run a user study, you're definitely going to end up using something like this, because emailing back and forth, 50 people is going to be a major pain. So this site has many different types of tools, and they have them organized by kind of how they're being used. Okay, so this is a very good resource for y'all. Now, looking at this map, I just want you to notice that there are, again, many different types of tools. Yeah, did I not put the link in the chat? Let me put that link in the chat. Good point. That link is right there in the chat. So one of the points I want y'all to get from this is that there are many different types of user study tools. There's some around recruiting. There's some around actually performing the research, some around insight management, some around gathering passive insights, some around design. As we look in a little closer, you can see that active research, we can consider like actually screen sharing and watching people. So that means any of these video conferencing things could be used. If you want to do usability testing, there's a lot of things that you could use to do that. There's tools that kind of track what users are doing, but also share video. You can see they span these two categories. There's tools that you can use to record user interviews. There's tools you can use for scheduling, and those are also going to be crucial when you're actually recording things that users are doing. There's transcription services. So if you have user interviews, you don't necessarily want to transcribe the entire interview, but you often do want the text that people said so that you can automatically analyze that data. And so, again, all of these tools are going to be useful when you're out in the field doing user studies. A couple other things. When you have insights, you're going to have to kind of organize them in some way, kind of like requirements handling. There are many different ways, including things like Trello boards to analyze, kind of organize your thoughts about which things should be improved. There's a lot of the more kind of traditional things like Google Analytics and A/B testing frameworks, which you think of when you think of user studies. There's also a lot of things around how to prototype and design. So again, just giving you a quick tour of these tools and what they're used for. I highly recommend this page, just taking a look over this page and understanding the different tools, different categories of tools, and things like that. Very good resource. The other thing, the other thing that I wanted to mention is related to this particular site, which does an amazing job of telling you what tools are out there. I wanted to mention they also have the State of the User Research Report, which again I also highly recommend especially for those of you that are very interested in this as a career. Now, there's lots of reasons to do computer science. It's fun. There's lots of reasons to do design. It's interesting. But I did want to just mention this has a lot of user reports, a lot of data points, 525 from people in 44 countries. And one thing which you may be interested in is it talks about how much people are paid. And I think that there's a perception that perhaps designers don't get paid well, or they don't get paid as well because it's it's kind of seen as a softer science than the actual programming of things. But if you look at user research experience and salary, and you can read this on your own time too, a lot of people are reporting great salaries. For instance, you can see just in the raw data, a lot of people are reporting the 100,000 to 150,000 range. And when you talk about people in the US, people are generally reporting 100 to 150,000 in the US. Now, a lot of that's affected by people working in, Silicon Valley and stuff like that, where salaries have to be super high to account for the cost of living. But even with that, that's a reasonable salary. And so I just wanted to let you know, if you were maybe not thinking about design as much because you were worried that it was less lucrative than regular programming for whatever reason, the numbers do not support that theory. In fact, being a designer, especially a designer who's technically savvy, you can be paid quite well, as this report shows. And so don't take that as a reason not to do it. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to mention as we talked about the tools, I just gave you the tools link so you can go look up the tools all day. However, these tools can change very quickly. That's why I'm not making you memorize these tools. Maybe today it's Google Analytics, tomorrow it's something entirely different. Maybe Google Survey was the thing to use, or Google Forms back in the day, and something else, SurveyMonkey, is the thing. I don't know. What I want to say here is that these tools change all the time. Certain tools falling out of favor. So you don't want to memorize like certain tools as much, but you do want to know which techniques, like a survey versus usability testing versus clickstream analysis versus click testing. You want to know what those mean. So that's more important. Techniques are very important. Tools are important if you're actually working in the business at that time, but techniques are the fundamental things that don't change so much. Okay, we're going to actually skip that because we're running out of time, and I wanted to mention, let me add the slide about questions because all right, these are from last time. All right, so that's going to be it for the lecture today. What I want to do now is open it up for questions. I know there's a couple of questions I didn't get to at the beginning of class. So let me know if you have any questions about the class content today or about the upcoming deliverables. Again, that's going to be the end of the lecture today. But let me know if you have any questions about deliverables or any of the class content today. So ask me questions right here on Menti. If you don't have questions, I'll see you on Wednesday. If you do have questions, again, put them up here on Menti and I'll answer them one by one for the next few minutes. Somebody's asking, could you release the grading rubric for the MVP so we can make sure we're on the right path? No, I don't. I intentionally don't release the grading rubric for these projects. So here's what you're used to as a student. You're used to having some kind of grading rubric that tells you exactly to the point, exactly what you should do. The problem with making a good design or making a good prototype in the real world is that nobody's going to give you this rubric. They don't tell you, oh, this is exactly how I want it done, because that's the work that you have to do. So part of this project is figuring out what me, the client, or your boss in this scenario wants. And you can figure that out from what I put on Gradescope and also what I say here during class. But I'm not intentionally not giving you this rubric because you have to start to figure out what people want for things like prototypes or MVPs or sketches and things like that. So I know I'm kind of being a pain there, and I'm sorry about that, but it is part of you growing as a computer science person, figuring out how to deal with people and figuring out how to give them what they want, even when they don't tell you exactly what they want. So I apologize, but that's part of the class. So the MVP and the video of the app and the commits are due Friday. Kind of. It's really just the video of the app and the commits are due Friday. I will not actually do anything with your MVP. If you wanted to spend a ton of time faking your MVP on a video, I would never know. However, I would argue that you will spend more time faking your MVP than you would just like building it and then making a video of it. But really, all that's due Friday is a video demo of your MVP and the commits. So really only two things due Friday. And somebody else is asking, could you share the grading rubric for the MVP? Again, I don't share this, and it's because part of this class is figuring out how to give a client what they want, even when they're a little bit vague about what they want. So sorry, it's part of the class. Somebody's asking, will we need to be able to add multiple players for the MVP, or is one player for the MVP good enough for now? So you're going to want to be able to demonstrate your app. I mean, you could go either way here. It's definitely more compelling if you could add at least two players, because then you could show, oh, well, there's a winner at the end, right? You could do a full demo. But it's not a big deal if it's only one player. MVP is just, again, minimum viable product. So if you could play it by yourself and keep your own score, that would be good enough. Of course, it's better if you have two, just because you could demo other things. So, it's not a clear answer here. You could go either way. It's better if you have two, but it's certainly acceptable if you have one. So somebody's saying, if you're grading like a client, shouldn't we be getting client requirements? Yes, but the truth of the matter is what I have given you is actually probably more than you would get from a client. So what you get in the and also this is like an internal client, like your boss, right? What your boss will tell you is we'll have meetings just like we have here in class, and they'll tell you, hey, this is the app we want, and I'm even giving you a little bit more concrete information than what they would be giving you. So again, this is part of the experience, is dealing with fuzzier requirements. And I know it's a pain, but that is the real world. And the reason that this feels challenging to you is because in computer science, up until now, you've been given a lot of like, hey, sort this list, and like very concrete requirements. And that's good for learning, but now we're moving towards a real world where requirements are really fuzzy, and I mean really fuzzy. Uh, and so you're just going to have to get used to this kind of ambiguous situation where you have to deliver something you're not even that sure about exactly what it is, but you have to make guesses on behalf of the client and give them something that impresses them, even if they haven't specified exactly what they want. And this person is saying, not to be mean, but it isn't a little unfair to take off points on an assignment for things we couldn't have known to avoid since you don't provide a rubric. Look, I completely understand your point. It it's not intended to be mean, I promise you. It's not intended to be mean. I grade these projects really like kindly, and but this again, this is just part of kind of learning how to deal with clients and how to deal with clients in a design setting. So uh sorry, I'm not going to change this. This is something I feel strongly about. I understand that it feels tough and it's a challenge, but you just have to do the best you can with the challenge. I am grading these projects relatively reasonably, I would say, and so yeah, I'm sorry. That's just part of this class is learning to deal with these fuzzy requirements. Somebody's asking if we can't have a grading rubric, is there any way you could be more lenient on grading? And it seems like we're being set up to lose points, and the grade means a lot to some people. Yeah, look, I get grades mean a lot. Absolutely. I take grades very seriously. You know, I tried very hard when I was in undergrad too. Um, I can try and ease back on future grades. I'd like to point out that nobody has even, or maybe only one or two groups have gotten a C so far. I think most people have gotten A's and B's. So the grading has not been, objectively, has not been very hard, meaning people have only gotten A's and B's. For the vast majority of people have only gotten A's and B's. But I can definitely try and, for the MVP, you know, try and be a little bit more lenient, especially when we're dealing with the fuzzy requirements. Good. So I think, you know, more so this person saying, I understand they're fuzzy and ambiguous, but for many of this is their first design class and we haven't had the opportunity to have that learning part yet. Great. That's what we're trying to learn right now as we do this class. We're trying to learn, you know, how to deal with these kind of fuzzy things. I think in general, as I mentioned, I'm very happy with the submission so far. I think y'all are starting to get better and better at dealing with these fuzzy requirements. Um, and so I wouldn't, you know, I don't think anybody is doing poorly at all in this class so far. So I wouldn't worry about it too much yet. And again, I'll try and be kinder on the MVP. Yeah, okay. So I see, and you know, some people are having issues when they have very particular things that are graded that were never mentioned. And I do try and stick to things that have been mentioned in class for sure. But if you have very specific things that you want to mention, you know, we can always talk about those. Although, again, if it's like 2 points on a project, it's not going to change your grade overall. So I try and stick to heuristics and things like that. But remember, there are just things that matter in the real world, and you know, like how nice your deliverable looks. Um, so, you know, I'm going to keep on grading on those things. Make sure your deliverable looks nice. That's just something that matters to clients. Um, so, good points. I'm listening. I'm listening. Thank you very much. I don't have any NSF meetings this week, but I do, of course, always have meetings. All right, looks like we're running out of questions. And so I will see y'all on Wednesday. Hope y'all have a great day. Take it easy. See you on Wednesday. Thank you. See y'all later.